The elevator doors opened to reveal what looked like the aftermath of a digital apocalypse. Jasmine Thompson stepped into the 32nd floor of Technova Industries, holding a bag of Thai food, and immediately knew something was very wrong. The normally pristine lobby buzzed with frantic energy. Employees ran past her clutching laptops, their faces pale with panic. Phone calls overlapped in a symphony of chaos, voices rising and falling in desperate tones. "The entire infrastructure is down," someone shouted into a phone. $7 million of investor funding is on the line. Jasmine paused, her delivery bag forgotten as she watched the scene unfold. She had delivered food to this building dozens of times over the past year, always greeted by the calm efficiency of a successful tech company. Today felt different. Today felt like watching an empire crumble in real time. A man in an expensive suit rushed past her, his tie askew and his usually perfect hair disheveled. She recognized him from the business magazines that sometimes featured Technova Industries. Ryan Mitchell, the young billionaire CEO who had built this company from nothing. Right now, he looked like someone watching everything he had worked for slip through his fingers. "Sir, the investors are arriving in 20 minutes, a stressed assistant called after him. "What do we tell them?" Ryan stopped dead in his tracks, running his hands through his hair. "I don't know, Emma. I honestly don't know." Jasmine watched him, and something inside her chest tightened. She had seen that look before, the exact moment when someone realizes that all their careful planning, all their hard work might not be enough. She had worn that same expression a year ago when her own tech career had imploded, when whistleblowing about corruption had marked her as unemployable in the industry she loved. The Thai food order was for the executive floor, but as Jasmine made her way toward the reception desk, she caught fragments of increasingly desperate conversations. The company's flagship AI system, which was supposed to revolutionize data analysis for Fortune 500 companies, had crashed completely. Not just a minor glitch or temporary outage, a complete system failure that had wiped out months of work and threatened to derail the biggest investment presentation in the company's history. "Has anyone reached Tyler?" Ryan called out to his team. "Where is our CTO when we need him most?" "He's on his way back from the conference in Seattle," Emma replied, checking her phone frantically. "But his flight doesn't land for another 3 hours." Ryan's shoulders sagged. 3 hours might as well have been 3 years. The investors were coming now, expecting to see a demonstration of technology that no longer existed in working form. Jasmine approached the reception desk, where a young woman was juggling 3 phone calls while typing furiously on her computer. When she finally noticed Jasmine, she looked like she might cry. "I'm sorry, we can't really handle food deliveries right now," the receptionist said, her voice shaking. "Everything is just falling apart." "I can see that," Jasmine replied gently. "But I still need to deliver this order. It's already paid for." The receptionist looked around helplessly. "I don't even know who ordered it. Half our systems are down and everyone's in crisis mode." As if summoned by their conversation, Ryan appeared at the reception desk, looking even more frazzled than before. "Emma, do we have any update from the IT team? They're saying it might take 8 to 12 hours to even identify the problem, let alone fix it," Emma replied, and Ryan's face went completely white. Jasmine watched this exchange, and despite every instinct telling her to stay out of it, she found herself stepping forward. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I couldn't help overhearing. You're dealing with a system crash." Ryan looked at her with the kind of expression reserved for people who were barely holding on to their sanity. "Yes, and unless you happen to be a miracle worker who can resurrect dead code, I don't think a food delivery can help us right now." There was something in his tone, not rudeness exactly, but the brittle edge of someone who had reached the absolute limit of what they could handle. Jasmine recognized it because she had been there herself. She also recognized something else in his eyes, something that made her next words come out before she could stop them. "Actually," she said, setting down the food bag, "I might be able to help with that." Ryan stared at her for a long moment, taking in her delivery uniform and the insulated bag at her feet. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said I might be able to help," Jasmine repeated, more firmly this time. "I have some experience with system architecture and debugging." The lobby had gone quiet around them, conversations pausing as people noticed the exchange. Jasmine could feel dozens of eyes on her, and she almost backed down. Almost. But then she looked at Ryan's face again, saw the desperate hope fighting against disbelief, and she held her ground. "You're a food delivery driver," Ryan said slowly, not unkindly, but with the tone of someone trying to understand a puzzle. "Right now, yes," Jasmine answered. "But I wasn't always." Something in her voice made Ryan look at her more carefully. Really look at her, not just glance past her like most people did when they saw the delivery uniform. She watched as his expression shifted from polite dismissal to genuine curiosity. "Emma," he said without taking his eyes off Jasmine, "cancel the rest of my morning. Clear out conference room A." "Sir, the investors dash," Emma began. "We'll have to wait," Ryan finished. "I want to hear what she has to say." As they walked toward the conference room, Jasmine felt the weight of everyone's stares. She knew what they were thinking. What could a delivery driver possibly know about fixing a $7 million technology disaster? The same thing she had thought about herself every day for the past year, every time she put on this uniform instead of the business clothes she used to wear to her engineering job. But as they entered the conference room and Ryan closed the door behind them, shutting out the chaos of the lobby, Jasmine felt something she hadn't experienced in months. She felt like herself again. Not the person who had been broken down and cast out, but the person who had once been brilliant enough to spot corruption that million-dollar audits had missed. "So," Ryan said, sitting down across from her at the polished conference table, "tell me who you really are." And for the first time in a year, Jasmine prepared to do exactly that. Ryan studied Jasmine's face as she sat across from him in the conference room. Through the glass walls, he could see his employees running around like ants in a disturbed hill, but something about this woman's calm presence made him feel like maybe, just maybe, there was hope. "My name is Jasmine Thompson," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Until 13 months ago, I was a junior back-end engineer at Dataflow Solutions." Ryan's eyebrows shot up. Dataflow Solutions was one of the biggest data management companies on the West Coast. Was? Jasmine's expression tightened slightly. "I was fired for reporting security vulnerabilities and data mishandling to federal regulators. The company claimed I was making false accusations to damage their reputation." "Were you?" "No." The word came out firm and clear. "I found evidence that they were selling user data to third parties without consent and covering up security breaches. When I reported it internally and nothing happened, I went to the authorities." Ryan leaned back in his chair. He remembered the Dataflow scandal that had broken about 8 months ago: massive fines, congressional hearings, executive resignations. "That was you." "That was me," Jasmine confirmed. "But by the time the truth came out, I had already been blacklisted. No tech company would touch me. Too much of a risk to hire someone who might report problems to regulators." "So you became a delivery driver." Jasmine shrugged, but Ryan caught the flash of pain in her eyes. "Bills don't stop coming just because your career imploded. I've been doing this for almost a year now, trying to figure out my next move." Through the conference room windows, Ryan could see his IT director, Steve, arguing with someone on the phone while gesturing wildly at his laptop screen. Every minute they spent talking was another minute closer to the investor's arrival, another minute closer to losing everything he had built. "What kind of experience do you have with system crashes?" he asked. "More than I'd like," Jasmine replied with a wry smile. "At Dataflow, I specialized in security architecture and system diagnostics. I found vulnerabilities that their entire cybersecurity team missed. I also freelance for smaller companies, helping them debug everything from payment processing failures to database corruptions." Ryan felt a spark of hope, quickly tempered by reality. "Jasmine, I appreciate the offer, but our system is incredibly complex. We're talking about advanced AI algorithms, machine learning protocols, distributed computing across multiple server farms. This isn't exactly a standard debugging job. Neither was exposing a multi-billion-dollar data trafficking operation," Jasmine said quietly. "But I managed that." Before Ryan could respond, Emma burst through the conference room door, her face flushed with panic. "Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the investors just moved up their arrival time. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Ryan felt his stomach drop. 10 minutes? Their flight landed early, and they want to get the presentation over with so they can catch the next flight to their meeting in Los Angeles. Ryan closed his eyes and tried to think. 10 minutes wasn't enough time to fix anything, barely enough time to come up with a believable excuse for why their revolutionary AI system was completely non-functional. What exactly happens if this presentation fails? Jasmine asked. We lose the $7 million in Series B funding, Ryan said, opening his eyes to meet her gaze. Which means we can't finish developing the product, which means we can't fulfill our existing contracts, which means the company dies. And how many people work here? 87 employees, Ryan replied, understanding immediately why she was asking. 87 people lose their jobs if I can't figure this out. Jasmine stood up from the conference table. Show me your server room. Jasmine, I can't just let a delivery driver into our dash. Ryan. Her voice cut through his objection with quiet authority. Right now, I'm the only person in this building who isn't panicking, who has the skills you need, and who has nothing left to lose. Your choice is to trust me or watch everything collapse in the next few minutes. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her. Despite the delivery uniform, despite the impossible situation, there was something in her eyes that reminded him of himself when he had first started this company. Confidence built on competence, not arrogance. The look of someone who had stared down bigger problems and won. Emma, he said, making a decision that felt either brilliant or completely insane, escort Miss Thompson to the server room. Give her whatever access she needs. Sir, are you sure? No, Ryan admitted. I'm not sure about anything right now. But I'm sure that what we're doing isn't working. As they hurried toward the elevators, Jasmine asked, what exactly was the system doing when it crashed? We were running a demonstration for our pre-investors yesterday, Ryan explained, punching the button for the basement level. Everything worked perfectly. This morning, Steve tried to boot up the system for final preparations and nothing. Complete failure across all nodes. Any recent changes to the code base? Tyler, our CTO, pushed an update 3 days ago, but it was just optimization code. Nothing that should have caused a system-wide failure. The elevator doors opened to reveal Technova's server room, rows upon rows of humming machines, their LED indicators creating a galaxy of blinking lights. Normally, Ryan found the sight reassuring, proof of everything he had built. Today, many of those lights were red, angry warnings of systems in distress. Jasmine walked into the room like she owned it, her eyes scanning the setup with professional assessment. This is beautiful, she murmured, running her fingers along one of the server racks. Whoever designed this architecture knew what they were doing. That was Tyler, Ryan said, feeling a mixture of pride and worry. He's brilliant with infrastructure design. Jasmine nodded, but something in her expression shifted. She moved to one of the main terminal stations and began typing rapidly, her fingers flying across the keyboard with the kind of muscle memory that only came from years of experience. Interesting, she said after a few minutes of scrolling through screens full of code and error logs. What's interesting? This crash, Jasmine said, turning to face him. It's not random. Someone knew exactly which systems to target and how to make it look like a spontaneous failure. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. Are you saying this was deliberate? I'm saying, Jasmine replied, her voice grim, that someone sabotaged your system. And they did it from the inside. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Ryan stared at Jasmine, hoping he had misheard, hoping she was wrong, hoping for anything other than the implications of what she had just said. That's impossible, he said finally. Our security protocols are bulletproof. Tyler designed them himself. Jasmine's fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up screens of code that looked like ancient hieroglyphics to Ryan. Security protocols are only as strong as the people who have access to them, she said without looking up. And this kind of damage? It required administrative privileges and intimate knowledge of your system architecture. Ryan moved closer to the screen, trying to make sense of what she was showing him. What exactly are you seeing? Look here, Jasmine pointed to a section of code highlighted in red. This is a buffer overflow attack, but it's been disguised to look like a memory leak. And here she scrolled to another section. Someone injected malicious code into your machine learning algorithms, but they buried it so deep that your standard diagnostics would never find it. How deep? Deep enough that it would only activate under very specific conditions, Jasmine explained, her expression growing more serious by the minute. Conditions that happened to occur this morning when your system tried to boot up for the investor presentation. Ryan felt sick. So this was timed. Perfectly timed, Jasmine confirmed. Whoever did this knew your schedule, knew when you'd be demonstrating the system, and wanted to make sure it failed at the worst possible moment. Through the server room's glass partition, Ryan could see Steve and 2 other IT technicians working frantically at their stations. None of them had spotted what Jasmine had found in minutes. Either she was incredibly gifted or his entire IT department was incompetent. Given everything he had seen of her work so far, he was beginning to suspect it was the former. Can you fix it? He asked. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, studying the screens with intense concentration. Yes, she said finally. But it's going to take time, and it's going to require some creative solutions. How much time? If I work alone and nobody interrupts me? Maybe 2 hours for a temporary fix, 4 hours for a permanent solution. Ryan checked his watch. The investors had arrived 3 minutes ago and were currently being entertained in the executive conference room with coffee and small talk. Emma could probably stretch that for 20 minutes, maybe 30 if she was creative. I don't have 2 hours, Ryan said. I have maybe 20 minutes before I have to walk into that room and explain why our revolutionary AI system is completely broken. Then you need to stall them, Jasmine said simply. Tell them there's been a delay, offer to reschedule whatever it takes. They won't reschedule. These investors are flying back to New York tonight, and if they don't see a working demonstration today, they're out. $7 million gone. Jasmine turned away from the computer to face him fully. Ryan, I can work miracles, but I can't work actual magic. This system needs serious repair work. What if we just got it partially working? Enough for a basic demonstration? Absolutely not, Jasmine said firmly. If I do a patch job and it fails during the presentation, you'll be worse off than you are now. At least right now you can blame technical difficulties. If it crashes in front of the investors, they'll know your product is fundamentally flawed. Ryan ran his hands through his hair, feeling the weight of 87 jobs pressing down on his shoulders. So what do you suggest? I suggest you trust me to do this right, Jasmine said. Go upstairs, tell the investors that you've discovered a critical security vulnerability that needs to be addressed before the demonstration. Tell them it shows how seriously you take data protection. Will they buy that? If you sell it right, yes. Make it sound like good news, like you're being proactive about security instead of reactive to problems. It was a reasonable plan, but Ryan hesitated. Everything about this situation felt surreal. An hour ago, he had been a successful CEO preparing for the most important presentation of his career. Now he was taking strategic advice from a food delivery driver in his server room. Why are you helping me? He asked suddenly. Jasmine paused in her typing. What do you mean? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. You could have just delivered the food and walked away from all this chaos. Jasmine was quiet for a moment, her eyes focused on the blinking lights of the servers around them. When I was at Dataflow, there were people who could have helped me when I reported the security issues. People who could have backed me up, supported my findings, made it harder for the company to silence me. But they didn't. They didn't, Jasmine confirmed. They were too scared of losing their jobs, too worried about rocking the boat. So I got thrown under the bus alone. And you don't want that to happen to someone else. I don't want to be someone who walks away when they could have helped, Jasmine said simply. Even if helping means sticking my neck out again. Ryan felt something shift in his chest, a recognition of shared experience. He had started Technova because he believed technology could solve real problems, make people's lives better. But building a company meant making compromises, meant sometimes choosing the safe path over the right path. Looking at Jasmine now, he remembered what it felt like to care more about doing the right thing than protecting yourself. Okay, he said. I'll go stall the investors. How long do you need? Give me 3 hours for a solid fix. Less if I can identify who did this and understand their exact methods. 3 hours. Ryan nodded. I can probably manage that. As he headed toward the server room door, Jasmine called after him. Ryan. He turned back. When you find out who sabotaged your system, she said, her voice carrying a note of warning, be careful who you confront with that information. If they were willing to destroy your company once, they won't hesitate to do it again. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. In his focus on saving the investor presentation, he had almost forgotten the bigger picture. Someone he trusted, someone with administrative access to his systems, had deliberately tried to destroy everything he had built. As he walked back toward the elevator, Ryan realized that fixing the technical problem might be the easy part. Figuring out who had betrayed him and why was going to be much more complicated. Ryan stepped out of the elevator onto the executive floor and immediately spotted the cluster of expensive suits gathered around the coffee station. The investors, 4 middle-aged men and 1 woman, all carrying the confident air of people who made million-dollar decisions before breakfast. Emma was doing her best to keep them entertained, but Ryan could see the polite smiles starting to wear thin. Gentlemen, Ms. Rodriguez, Ryan said, approaching the group with more confidence than he felt. Thank you for accommodating the early arrival. Ryan, said James Peterson, the lead investor from Meridian Capital. We're eager to see this revolutionary AI system you've been promising. Our schedule is quite tight today. Of course, Ryan replied smoothly. Actually, that's what I wanted to discuss with you. This morning, our security team identified a potential vulnerability in our system architecture. The investors exchanged glances. A vulnerability? Asked Sarah Rodriguez from Phoenix Ventures. Nothing that affects the core functionality, Ryan assured them quickly. But as you know, data security is paramount in today's market. We'd rather delay the demonstration by a few hours than risk showing you a system that hasn't been fully secured. How long are we talking about? Peterson asked, checking his expensive watch. 3 hours maximum, Ryan said. Our team is implementing additional security protocols as we speak. The investors huddled together for a whispered conversation while Ryan tried to look calm and professional instead of like someone whose entire company was hanging by a thread. After what felt like an eternity, Peterson turned back to him. We can give you until 2 p.m., he said. We have a dinner meeting in Los Angeles tonight that we can't miss. 2 p.m. will be perfect, Ryan said, calculating frantically. That gave Jasmine exactly 3 hours and 15 minutes. As the investors settled into the lounge area to wait, Ryan excused himself and headed back toward the elevators. He needed to check on the IT team, make sure they weren't interfering with Jasmine's work, and figure out how to handle the growing suspicion that someone in his inner circle had betrayed him. The elevator ride to the IT department felt endless. When the doors finally opened, Ryan found Steve hunched over his computer, surrounded by empty coffee cups and crumpled papers. Any progress? Ryan asked. Steve looked up with bloodshot eyes. I've been through every diagnostic protocol we have. The system architecture is sound, the hardware is functioning perfectly, but something is blocking the AI algorithms from initializing properly. What about the rest of the team? Lisa's been checking for external intrusions, and Mike is reviewing all the recent code changes. So far, nothing. Ryan felt a stab of guilt. His team was working themselves into exhaustion trying to solve a problem that Jasmine had already diagnosed. But he couldn't tell them about her findings without explaining how a delivery driver had gained access to their server room and immediately spotted sabotage that they had missed. I want everyone to take a break, Ryan said. Go get some lunch, clear your heads. We'll regroup in an hour. Ryan, we can't stop now. That's an order, Steve. 1 hour break, then we tackle this fresh. Steve looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Ryan's tone convinced him to comply. As the IT team gathered their things and headed out for lunch, Ryan made his way back to the server room. He found Jasmine exactly where he had left her, but now she had multiple screens open and was typing with the focused intensity of someone deep in the zone. She had somehow found a spare chair and had made herself comfortable at one of the workstations. How's it going? Ryan asked quietly. Better than expected, Jasmine replied without looking up. I've isolated the malicious code and I'm working on removing it without corrupting the core algorithms. The good news is that your system is fundamentally sound. This is all surface-level sabotage. Surface level? Designed to cause maximum disruption with minimum actual damage, Jasmine explained. Whoever did this wanted to destroy your presentation, not permanently cripple your company. Ryan frowned. Why would someone want to sabotage the presentation specifically? That's what I've been thinking about, Jasmine said, finally turning to look at him. Who benefits if this investor deal falls through? Our competitors, I suppose. But none of them have access to our systems. What about internal benefits? Anyone who might profit from the company's valuation staying low. Ryan felt cold realization wash over him. Someone who wanted to buy out the company at a discount. Or someone who had a separate deal lined up that would be threatened by new investment money, Jasmine added. Before Ryan could respond, his phone buzzed with a text message. Tyler, his CTO and business partner, checking in from Seattle. How's the prep going for the big presentation? Can't wait to get back and see the investors' faces when they see what we've built. Ryan stared at the message, reading it twice. Something about the timing felt wrong. Tyler knew the presentation was today, knew how important it was, yet he had scheduled a conference trip that would keep him away during the most critical moment in the company's history. Jasmine, Ryan said slowly, you mentioned that this sabotage required administrative access. Yes. Someone with root privileges across your entire system. How many people have that level of access? Jasmine pulled up a security screen. According to your user logs, only 3 people. You, your CTO Tyler, and your head of IT. Steve would never dash. Steve couldn't, Jasmine interrupted. I've been watching the access logs. The malicious code was inserted 3 days ago at 11:47 p.m. Steve was logged into the customer support system at that time, handling a client emergency. I can see his activity logs. Ryan felt his world tilt. Tyler was in the office late that night. He said he was optimizing the system for the presentation. Ryan, Jasmine said gently, is there any reason Tyler might want this presentation to fail? Ryan sank into a nearby chair, his mind racing through memories and conversations. Tyler had been his college roommate, his co-founder, his best friend. But lately there had been tensions. Disagreements about the company's direction, arguments about taking on investors versus staying independent. He's been pushing for us to accept a buyout offer from Data Corp instead of taking investor money, Ryan said slowly. He thinks bringing in outside investors will dilute our control over the company. How much is Data Corp offering? $50 million for the entire company. But that would mean laying off most of our staff and essentially dissolving Technova into their existing operations. Jasmine nodded grimly. And if your investor presentation fails, if you can't secure the $7 million in development funding, we'd be forced to consider the buyout, Ryan finished. It would be our only option to avoid bankruptcy. The server room fell quiet except for the steady hum of the machines around them. Ryan felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the wreckage of everything he thought he knew about his business partner and closest friend. I need proof, he said finally. I can't accuse Tyler based on suspicions and timing. I'm working on that, Jasmine replied, turning back to her screens. If Tyler did this, he left digital fingerprints. I just need to know where to look. As Jasmine dove back into her work, Ryan stepped outside the server room to clear his head. Through the building's windows, he could see the city spread out below, full of people going about their normal lives, unaware that the fate of 87 jobs was being decided in a basement server room by a delivery driver turned digital detective. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Tyler. Everything on track? No last-minute surprises, I hope. Ryan stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Everything's under control. See you when you get back. But as he hit send, Ryan realized that nothing was under control anymore. The only question was whether Jasmine could fix his system before he had to decide what to do about his best friend's betrayal. 2 hours into Jasmine's work, the server room had become her command center. She had 3 workstations running simultaneously, each screen displaying different aspects of the Technova system architecture. Empty coffee cups and energy bar wrappers littered the desk around her. Ryan had quietly ensured she had everything she needed without interrupting her flow. Got you, Jasmine muttered, leaning back in her chair with satisfaction. Ryan looked up from where he had been pacing near the door, checking his phone obsessively for updates from the increasingly restless investors. Got what? Proof, Jasmine said, swiveling her chair to face him. Tyler didn't just sabotage your system. He's been preparing for this for weeks. She gestured to one of her screens, which showed a complex network diagram with dozens of red markers. Look at this. He's been systematically creating backdoors in your security protocols, installing monitoring software to track your communications with investors, and setting up automated scripts to crash specific system components. Ryan moved closer to the screen, his stomach churning as he saw the extent of the infiltration. How did he hide all this from our security scans? He buried it in legitimate system updates, Jasmine explained. Every time he pushed optimization code or security patches, he included a few lines of malicious code disguised as standard functions. Individually, none of these pieces would trigger alerts. But together they're a time bomb, Ryan finished. Exactly. And look at this, Jasmine switched to another screen. He's been accessing your email communications with investors, your financial planning documents, even your personal calendar. He knew exactly when to trigger the crash for maximum impact. Ryan felt a mixture of betrayal and admiration for Tyler's technical skills. His best friend had turned into his worst enemy with surgical precision. Can you prove he did it? I can prove someone with his login credentials did it, Jasmine said carefully. The digital forensics are clear. These changes were made using Tyler's administrative account, from his usual workstation, during times when only he had building access. But you can't prove it was actually him at the keyboard. Not definitively, no. But Ryan, who else would have his passwords, his building access, and the technical knowledge to pull this off? Ryan's phone buzzed with another text from Tyler. Hope everything's going smoothly. Data Corp called again about their offer. Maybe we should discuss it seriously when I get back. He's not even trying to be subtle, Ryan said, showing Jasmine the message. Sociopaths rarely are once they think they've won, Jasmine replied grimly. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Ryan could answer, his phone rang. Emma's voice was tight with stress when he picked up. Ryan, the investors are getting antsy. Mr. Peterson is talking about catching an earlier flight back to New York. How much longer do you need? Ryan checked his watch. It was 1:15 p.m. The presentation was supposed to start in 45 minutes. Give me 15 more minutes, he told Emma. Tell them we're doing final security verification and then we'll be ready. 15 minutes, Ryan repeated to Jasmine after hanging up. Can you have it working by then? I can have it working in 5 minutes, Jasmine said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I've isolated all the malicious code and written patches for every vulnerability Tyler created. But Ryan, there's something else you need to know. What? Tyler didn't just sabotage your current system. He's been stealing your proprietary algorithms and selling them to Data Corp. I found encrypted communication logs hidden in his development folders. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. Our algorithms are what make this company valuable. If Data Corp already has them, then their buyout offer isn't about acquiring your technology, Jasmine finished. It's about eliminating competition. They already have your intellectual property, they just want to make sure you can't use it. The implications hit Ryan like a physical blow. Not only had Tyler betrayed him, but he had essentially gift-wrapped their entire company and handed it to their biggest competitor. The $7 million in investor funding wasn't just about growth anymore, it was about survival. There, Jasmine said, hitting a final key combination. Systems back online. The server room filled with a symphony of pleasant beeps and chirps as dozens of systems came back to life. Lights that had been red for hours turned green, error messages disappeared from screens, and the gentle hum of the servers shifted to a more confident purr. That's it? Ryan asked. It's fixed. It's more than fixed, Jasmine said with a small smile. I didn't just remove Tyler's sabotage. I improved your security architecture and optimized your algorithm processing speed by about 15%. Ryan stared at the screens in amazement. How did you do that? Tyler's sabotage actually showed me some inefficiencies in your original code structure. When I cleaned it up, I found opportunities for optimization that your original developers missed. Including Tyler. Especially Tyler, Jasmine said. He's brilliant at infrastructure, but he's not great at algorithm efficiency. His code works, but it's not elegant. Ryan's phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a text message. It was a call from an unknown number. This is Ryan. Mr. Mitchell, this is David Chen from Data Corp. I understand you're having some technical difficulties with your presentation today. Ryan's blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, who is this? We spoke briefly at the tech conference in Denver last month. I'm calling because we'd like to make a revised offer for Technova Industries. $60 million, all cash, deal closes within 30 days. How did you know about our presentation today? There was a pause. Word travels fast in our industry, Mr. Mitchell. Technical problems have a way of becoming public knowledge. Ryan looked at Jasmine, who was listening to the conversation with growing anger. She gestured for him to put the call on speaker. What makes you think we're interested in selling? Ryan asked. Let's be realistic, Chen continued. Your current investor deal is clearly in jeopardy. Our offer provides financial security for your employees and fair compensation for your shareholders. It's a win-win situation. And what about our development team? Our ongoing projects? We'd retain key personnel, of course. Some redundancies would be inevitable, but that's the nature of corporate integration. Ryan felt sick. Chen was talking about his employees like they were interchangeable parts, his life's work like it was just another asset to be absorbed and discarded. I'll need to discuss this with my board, Ryan said carefully. Of course. But don't wait too long. Our offer expires at the end of business today. The line went dead. Ryan stared at his phone, then at Jasmine. They're putting pressure on you before you can recover from Tyler's sabotage, Jasmine said. This whole thing is coordinated. Which means Tyler isn't just selling them our algorithms, Ryan realized. He's been giving them intelligence about our business operations, our financial situation, everything. Ryan, Jasmine said gently, you need to get upstairs and give that presentation. Show those investors that your technology works and that Technova is worth investing in. What about Tyler? What about the proof of his sabotage? We'll deal with Tyler when he gets back from Seattle, Jasmine said firmly. Right now, the best revenge is success. Go show them what your company can really do. Ryan looked around the server room at the screens full of healthy green lights, at the woman who had single-handedly saved his company from destruction. Jasmine, I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by giving the presentation of your life, she replied. And Ryan? When you introduce your technology to those investors, remember that Tyler isn't the only brilliant engineer in this building. As Ryan headed toward the elevator, his mind was already shifting into presentation mode. But part of him remained focused on the woman in the server room, the delivery driver who had turned out to be exactly the kind of person he wanted to build his company with. The elevator doors closed, and Ryan realized that in the next 45 minutes, he would either save Technova Industries or watch it die. But thanks to Jasmine, at least now he had a fighting chance. The presentation went flawlessly. Ryan stood in the main conference room, watching the investors' faces light up as Technova's AI system performed analysis tasks that should have taken hours in mere minutes. The optimizations Jasmine had made during the repair process had pushed the system's performance beyond anything Ryan had originally promised. Impressive, Sarah Rodriguez murmured as the AI correctly predicted market trends based on seemingly unrelated data points. The processing speed is remarkable. And the security architecture? Asked Peterson. State of the art, Ryan replied, thinking of Jasmine's improvements. We've implemented multi-layered protection protocols that exceed industry standards. By the time the demonstration ended, the investors were buzzing with excitement. The funding deal that had seemed dead that morning was not only revived but expanded. The investors wanted to commit $8.5 million instead of the original $7 million. We'll have contracts drawn up within 48 hours, Peterson said as they gathered their materials. Outstanding work, Ryan. This technology is going to revolutionize the industry. As the investors filed out, Ryan felt a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. He had saved the company, secured the funding, and proven that Technova was worth investing in. But the victory felt hollow knowing that Tyler had tried to destroy everything they had built together. Emma approached him as he was gathering his own materials. Tyler's flight just landed, she said. He should be here within the hour. Ryan nodded grimly. When he arrives, ask him to meet me in my office. Don't mention anything about the presentation or the investors. Of course. How do you want to handle the announcement about the funding? Hold off for now, Ryan said. I need to deal with some internal matters first. Ryan made his way back to the server room, where he found Jasmine cleaning up her workspace. She had closed most of the diagnostic screens and was organizing the documentation she had created during the repair process. How did it go? She asked. $8.5 million, Ryan said, unable to keep the smile from his face. They loved the performance improvements you made. That's wonderful, Jasmine said, and Ryan could see genuine happiness in her expression. Your employees' jobs are secure. Thanks to you. Ryan sat down in the chair beside her workstation. Jasmine, I want to offer you a position here. Head of Cybersecurity, reporting directly to me. Jasmine was quiet for a moment, her fingers drumming against the desk. Ryan, that's incredibly generous, but I'm not sure I'm ready to jump back into the corporate world. You just saved my company. You spotted sabotage that my entire IT team missed. You optimized code that Tyler himself had written. How much more ready could you be? It's not about technical readiness, Jasmine said softly. It's about trust. The last time I tried to do the right thing in a corporate environment, it destroyed my career and my reputation. Before Ryan could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Tyler's here. He's asking about the investors and why there are coffee cups in conference room A. He's here, Ryan said, showing Jasmine the message. What are you going to do? Ryan thought about it. Every instinct told him to confront Tyler immediately, to demand explanations and apologies. But Jasmine had taught him something about strategic thinking in the past few hours. I'm going to give him a chance to confess, Ryan said finally. Show him the evidence you found and see if he admits to what he's done. And if he doesn't? Then I'll decide whether to fire him or have him arrested. Jasmine nodded slowly. Do you want me there when you talk to him? Would you be willing? After what he tried to do to your company and your employees? Yes. They made their way to Ryan's office, taking the elevator up to the executive floor. Through the glass walls, Ryan could see Tyler in the main lobby, chatting with Emma and looking completely relaxed. No guilt, no nervousness, no sign that he had spent the morning trying to destroy his best friend's life work. Tyler, Ryan called out as they approached. Good trip? Great conference, Tyler replied, his eyes shifting curiously to Jasmine. Who's this? This is Jasmine Thompson, Ryan said carefully. She's been helping us with some technical issues. Technical issues? Tyler's expression shifted to concern. What kind of technical issues? I thought everything was ready for the presentation. Why don't we discuss it in my office? Ryan suggested. The three of them settled into Ryan's office, Tyler taking his usual chair across from Ryan's desk while Jasmine sat slightly to the side. Ryan could see Tyler's confusion about her presence, but his old friend was too polite to ask directly. So, Tyler said, how did the presentation go? It went well, Ryan replied neutrally. Very well actually. That's great. I was worried when I didn't hear from you all morning. My flight was delayed and I kept thinking about Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, you know? Ryan studied Tyler's face, looking for any sign of deception. His friend seemed genuinely pleased about the presentation's success, which made what Ryan had to do next even more difficult. Tyler, we had some system problems this morning, Ryan said. Major ones. What kind of problems? Complete system failure. The AI algorithms crashed, the database connections were severed, everything went down. Tyler's face went pale. What? When did this happen? This morning, right before the investors arrived, Ryan continued. It looked like sabotage. Sabotage? Tyler's voice rose with what sounded like genuine shock. Ryan, that's impossible. Our security protocols would prevent dash. Unless someone with administrative access deliberately circumvented them, Jasmine interrupted quietly. Tyler turned to look at her, really seeing her for the first time. I'm sorry, but who are you exactly? And what qualifications do you have to make accusations about our security? I'm the person who found the malicious code in your system, Jasmine replied calmly. Code that was inserted using your login credentials 3 nights ago. The office fell completely silent. Ryan watched Tyler's face cycle through a series of expressions: confusion, understanding, calculation, and finally resignation. I don't know what game you're playing, Tyler said slowly, but I was in Seattle 3 nights ago. I have hotel receipts, conference attendance records dash. You were in Seattle yesterday and today, Jasmine corrected. 3 nights ago you were here until almost midnight working on what you called optimization code. Tyler looked at Ryan with an expression of hurt betrayal. You really think I would sabotage our own company? I think you've been selling our algorithms to Data Corp, Ryan said quietly. I think you've been planning to tank our investor deal so we'd be forced to accept their buyout offer. That's insane dash. I have the communication logs, Tyler, Jasmine said, pulling out a printed stack of papers. Encrypted messages between your system account and Data Corp servers. File transfers of proprietary code. Even records of payments to offshore accounts registered under shell companies. Tyler stared at the papers in Jasmine's hands, and Ryan saw the exact moment when his friend realized the game was over. The defensive anger faded from Tyler's face, replaced by something that looked almost like relief. How long have you known? Tyler asked quietly. Since this morning, Ryan replied. Since Jasmine figured out that our system crash wasn't an accident. Tyler leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. I never wanted it to go this far. How far did you want it to go? Ryan asked, fighting to keep his voice level. I wanted us to take the Data Corp deal, Tyler said, opening his eyes to meet Ryan's gaze. I thought if the investor presentation failed, you'd see that we needed a more stable option. So you sabotaged our system. I delayed our system, Tyler corrected. The sabotage was designed to be temporary, to cause problems during the presentation but not permanent damage to the company. And selling our algorithms to Data Corp? Tyler's shoulders sagged. They approached me 6 months ago. They said they were going to develop competing technology anyway, and they offered to pay me for consulting services. I told myself it wasn't really betrayal if they were going to figure out our methods eventually. Ryan felt like he was watching a stranger wear his best friend's face. Tyler, do you have any idea what you've done? Data Corp could have destroyed us with our own technology. They promised they wouldn't compete directly, Tyler said weakly. They said they wanted to integrate our algorithms into their existing products, not replace us. And you believed them? Tyler was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to believe them, he said finally. Ryan, I was scared. Scared that we were growing too fast. Scared that bringing in investors would mean losing control of what we'd built. The Data Corp deal seemed like a safe way to cash out before everything got too complicated. Ryan stared at his oldest friend, the person who had helped him build Technova from nothing, and realized that he was looking at someone he didn't really know at all. What happens now? Tyler asked. Ryan looked at Jasmine, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Now, Ryan said, you're going to help us make sure Data Corp can't use any of our stolen technology. And then you're going to resign. Tyler's resignation should have been the end of it. He handed over his company laptop, cleared out his desk, and signed documents agreeing never to compete with Technova or work for Data Corp. But as Jasmine reviewed the forensic evidence one more time, she discovered something that made her blood run cold. Ryan, she said, bursting into his office where he was trying to process the events of the day. We have a problem. A bigger problem than my CTO betraying me to our biggest competitor? Tyler wasn't working alone, Jasmine said, setting her laptop on Ryan's desk. Look at this. The screen showed a complex network diagram with multiple user accounts highlighted in different colors. Tyler's account was the primary access point, but someone else was coordinating the timing and providing additional intelligence. Ryan leaned closer to the screen. Who? I don't know yet, but they're still in the system. Right now. Whoever it is, they've been watching our investigation all day. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. They know we found Tyler out? They know everything, Jasmine confirmed grimly. They've been monitoring our communications, tracking our system repairs, even watching the security camera feeds. Can you trace them? I'm trying, but they're good. Really good. They're bouncing their connection through multiple proxy servers and using advanced encryption. This isn't some amateur hacker. This is professional-grade infiltration. Before Ryan could respond, his computer screen flickered and went black. Then, slowly, text began appearing in green letters against the dark background. You should have taken the offer, Ryan. Now things get complicated. Ryan and Jasmine stared at the screen in shock. The anonymous intruder was communicating directly with them. Can you track this? Ryan whispered. Jasmine's fingers flew across her keyboard, opening multiple diagnostic programs. They're masking their signal, but... She paused, frowning at her screen. This is weird. The intrusion is coming from inside the building. Inside the building? Physical access to our network. Someone in this building right now is running this operation. Ryan's mind raced through the possibilities. Most of the employees had gone home for the day, but there were still people working late in various departments. Security guards, cleaning staff, a few dedicated programmers who often stayed past normal hours. The text on Ryan's screen changed. You have 1 hour to reconsider the Data Corp offer. After that, your problems get much worse. What kind of problems? Ryan asked aloud, feeling slightly ridiculous for talking to his computer screen. The kind that involved the SEC, the FBI, and very uncomfortable questions about financial fraud, appeared on the screen. Tyler wasn't the only one with access to sensitive information. Jasmine looked up from her laptop. Ryan, they're threatening to frame you for financial crimes. With what evidence? They don't need real evidence, Jasmine said grimly. With administrative access to your systems, they could plant false financial records, fake communications with investors, anything they need to make it look like you've been committing securities fraud. Ryan felt the walls closing in around him. So our choices are to sell to Data Corp or face criminal charges for crimes we didn't commit? There's a third choice, Jasmine said, closing her laptop with determination. We find whoever is doing this and stop them. How? They made a mistake by communicating with us directly. The connection may be encrypted and routed through proxies, but they're still physically accessing our network from somewhere in this building. Jasmine stood up and headed for the door. I'm going to check every workstation, every network access point, every place someone could plug into our system. Jasmine, wait, Ryan called after her. If this person is dangerous enough to threaten federal fraud charges, what makes you think they won't be dangerous in other ways? Because, Jasmine said with a grim smile, I'm not going to give them a chance to be. They split up to cover more ground. Ryan took the upper floors while Jasmine headed to the basement levels. Each floor was mostly empty, with only security lighting illuminating the darkened office spaces. Ryan checked every computer that was still powered on, looking for signs of unauthorized access or unusual activity. On the 15th floor he found something odd. One of the workstations in the accounting department was running, its screen showing financial spreadsheets that looked like Technova's books but with numbers that Ryan didn't recognize. Jasmine, he called on his phone. I found something on 15. Someone's been manipulating our financial records. Don't touch anything, Jasmine replied. I'm on my way up. But before Ryan could step away from the workstation, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Steve, his head of IT, emerging from the stairwell. Steve, Ryan said, confused. What are you doing here so late? Steve looked nervous, his eyes darting between Ryan and the computer screen. I came back to run some more diagnostics on the system. After the crash this morning, I wanted to make sure everything was really stable. With financial records? I was checking to see if the crash affected our accounting databases, Steve said, but his explanation sounded rehearsed. Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Found the source. Network access point in storage room B12. Someone's been running a sophisticated operation from the basement. Ryan looked at Steve, pieces of the puzzle suddenly clicking into place. Steve, how long have you been working with Data Corp? Steve's face went completely white. I don't know what you're talking about. You're the inside person, Ryan said, understanding flooding through him. Tyler was the technical sabotage, but you've been the intelligence gathering. You've been preparing to frame me for financial fraud if the sabotage plan didn't work. Ryan, you need to listen to me, Steve said, his voice taking on a desperate edge. Data Corp isn't the villain here. They're offering to save Technova from bankruptcy. By stealing our technology and destroying our reputation? By providing stability. Steve's composure was cracking. You think those investors are going to stick around when things get tough? Data Corp offers guaranteed employment, guaranteed benefits, guaranteed future. For who? You. Steve pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. I'm sending the financial documents to the SEC right now. Fake investor communications, manipulated revenue reports, evidence of securities fraud. Steve, don't do this. It's already done, Steve said, hitting send on his phone. In about 10 minutes, federal investigators are going to receive a detailed report about Technova's fraudulent business practices. Your only choice now is to take the Data Corp deal and hope they can provide legal protection. Ryan stared at his head of IT, someone he had trusted with the company's most sensitive information, and realized that the betrayal ran deeper than he had imagined. Tyler's sabotage had been motivated by fear and poor judgment. Steve's campaign was motivated by something much darker. Why? Ryan asked. I gave you a good job, fair pay, opportunities for advancement. Why would you do this? Because I'm tired of being an employee, Steve said bitterly. Tired of watching you and Tyler get rich while I do the actual work of keeping this company running. Data Corp offered me a VP position and equity in their expanded operations. So you sold us out for a promotion. I saved us from inevitable failure, Steve corrected. Technova was always going to fail eventually. I just made sure we failed in a way that benefits everyone. Ryan's phone rang. Jasmine. Ryan, get out of there now. I found Steve's setup in the basement, and he's been monitoring all our communications. He knows we're on to him. Ryan looked at Steve, who was smiling now with cold satisfaction. Too late, Ryan, Steve said. Even if you could prove I planted the evidence, the damage is done. The SEC doesn't wait for proof to start investigations. Your company is finished. But Ryan was thinking about something Jasmine had said earlier about digital forensics and evidence trails. Steve, you made one mistake. What mistake? You assumed I was as stupid as Tyler, Ryan said, backing toward the stairwell. You assumed I wouldn't document everything. Steve's confident expression faltered slightly. What do you mean? I mean, Ryan said, pushing open the stairwell door, that every conversation, every screen session, every keystroke you've made today has been recorded and logged. And in about 5 minutes, those logs are going to prove that you planted fake evidence against me. Ryan ran for the stairs, leaving Steve staring after him in growing panic. But as he reached the stairwell, Ryan heard Steve's voice behind him, shouting into his phone. Execute the backup plan. Now. Ryan found Jasmine in the basement storage room, surrounded by computer equipment that looked like something from a spy movie. Multiple laptops, network hardware, and cables snaked across the floor, connecting to Technova's main server infrastructure through a hidden access panel. This is incredible, Jasmine said without looking up from one of the laptops. Steve's been running a parallel intelligence operation for months. He's got copies of every email, every financial document, every strategic planning session. He just sent fake evidence to the SEC, Ryan said breathlessly. He claims he has proof that I've been committing securities fraud. Actually, he doesn't, Jasmine replied with a grim smile. Look at this. She turned one of the laptops toward Ryan, showing a screen full of file creation timestamps and metadata. Every fake document Steve created has digital fingerprints that prove when and how it was made. The SEC might start an investigation, but any forensic analysis will show that these documents were fabricated today. What about his backup plan? He mentioned something about executing a backup plan. Jasmine's expression darkened. I was afraid of that. Look at this. She switched to another screen showing network traffic patterns. He's been preparing to crash not just our AI system, but our entire corporate network. Backups, financial records, employee databases, everything. Can he do that remotely? Not remotely, but he doesn't need to. He's got physical access to our servers and... Jasmine paused, her face going pale. Ryan, he's not just planning to crash our systems. He's planning to make it look like we're being hacked by foreign agents. What do you mean? These network logs show connections to servers in Russia, China, North Korea. If Steve triggers this backup plan, it'll look like Technova was infiltrated by hostile foreign intelligence services. That's not just a business scandal, that's a national security issue. Ryan felt sick. Which would force the government to shut us down immediately. And seize all our assets pending investigation, Jasmine confirmed. After which Data Corp would be perfectly positioned to acquire our technology through federal asset auctions. Before Ryan could respond, the lights in the storage room flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. He's starting the shutdown, Jasmine said, her fingers flying across the laptop keyboard. I need to get to the main server room. They ran through the basement corridors, emergency lighting casting weird shadows on the walls. When they reached the server room, they found Steve standing at the main terminal, his fingers moving rapidly across the keyboard. Steve, stop. Ryan called out. Steve turned to face them, his expression a mixture of desperation and determination. It's too late to stop this, Ryan. The process is already started. Steve, you're committing treason, Jasmine said, moving slowly toward one of the other terminals. Faking foreign intelligence attacks is a federal crime. No one's going to trace this back to me, Steve replied. The fake attack signatures will cover my tracks perfectly. Except for the part where we've been recording everything you've done for the past hour, Jasmine said calmly, settling down at a workstation. Steve's hands paused over the keyboard. What recording? Ryan activated emergency documentation protocols when we first suspected internal sabotage, Jasmine explained while she typed. Every keystroke, every screen capture, every system access has been logged to an external server. That's impossible. I would have seen those logs. You would have seen the obvious logs, Ryan said. But you didn't know about the hidden backup systems that Jasmine installed this afternoon. Steve stared at them for a moment, then laughed bitterly. You're bluffing. There's no way you could have set up that kind of monitoring without me knowing about it. Actually, Jasmine said, not looking up from her screen, there is. While you were busy planting fake evidence and planning foreign attack signatures, I was documenting everything for federal investigators. To prove her point, Jasmine pulled up a screen showing a comprehensive log of all of Steve's activities, complete with timestamps, IP addresses, and even screenshots of the fake documents he had created. Steve's face went completely white. You can't prove I meant to frame foreign agents. I was just trying to crash the system. Actually, I can prove it, Jasmine said, switching to another screen. Because you were stupid enough to test your fake foreign signatures on our development servers first. I have logs of you creating Russian and Chinese attack patterns 3 days ago. Plus, Ryan added, we recorded your confession about working with Data Corp and your threats about federal investigators. Steve looked around the server room like a trapped animal, his eyes darting between the exits and the computer terminals. Finally, his shoulders sagged in defeat. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to undo whatever you just did to our systems, Ryan said. Then I want you to help us document everything Data Corp has been planning. And if I do that? Then maybe we can avoid the treason charges, Jasmine said. Federal crimes for faking foreign attacks carry 20-year prison sentences. Steve stared at them for a long moment, then moved back to his terminal and began typing. The system crash I triggered can be reversed, but it'll take about an hour to bring everything back online. Do it, Ryan ordered. As Steve worked to undo his sabotage, Jasmine continued documenting everything for the authorities. Ryan, we need to call the FBI. This goes way beyond corporate espionage. What about the SEC investigation Steve triggered? Once we provide them with evidence that the documents were fabricated as part of a foreign intelligence false flag operation, they'll drop the investigation against you and start one against Data Corp for conspiracy. Ryan watched Steve working at the terminal, his former head of IT now just another criminal trying to minimize his prison sentence. Steve, how much was Data Corp paying you for this? $2 million up front, plus a VP position, Steve replied without looking up. They said if I could deliver Technova's complete technology portfolio and eliminate you as competition, they'd make me head of their entire data analysis division. And you believed them? Steve finally looked up from his screen. I believed them more than I believed you'd ever make me a real partner in this company. Ryan felt a stab of guilt. Had he been so focused on growth and success that he'd ignored the ambitions and frustrations of his own employees? Systems are coming back online, Steve announced. Everything should be functional within 30 minutes. Good, Jasmine said, standing up from her workstation. Because the FBI is going to want to see everything working when they get here. You already called them? I called them an hour ago, Jasmine replied. Right after I found Steve's setup down here. They should be arriving any minute. As if summoned by her words, they heard voices and footsteps in the corridor outside the server room. Official-sounding voices with the kind of authority that made everyone stand up straighter. Federal agents, Ryan muttered. This is really happening. Ryan, Jasmine said quietly, when the agents interview you, remember that you're not just a victim here. You're the CEO who discovered and stopped a sophisticated corporate espionage and false flag operation. You saved your company and potentially prevented a serious national security incident. Ryan looked at her with admiration and gratitude. We saved the company. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Actually, Jasmine said with a small smile, I think you could have. You just needed someone to remind you that doing the right thing is more important than being safe. The server room door opened, and 3 FBI agents in dark suits entered, followed by 2 people Ryan didn't recognize carrying laptops and forensic equipment. Mr. Mitchell? The lead agent asked. I'm Agent Rodriguez. We understand you've uncovered some serious criminal activity. That's correct, Ryan replied, standing up straighter. And we have everything documented. 3 weeks later, Ryan sat in his office reading the morning news coverage of the DataCorp scandal. The FBI investigation had unraveled a conspiracy involving multiple tech companies, federal contract fraud, and what prosecutors were calling the most sophisticated corporate espionage operation in Silicon Valley history. Tyler had cooperated with federal investigators in exchange for reduced charges and was serving 6 months of house arrest while helping prosecutors understand the technical aspects of the conspiracy. Steve faced serious federal charges but was also cooperating, providing evidence about DataCorp's broader pattern of corporate theft and market manipulation. DataCorp itself was facing congressional investigations, SEC violations, and potential criminal charges against 3 of their senior executives. Their stock price had crashed and they were reportedly considering bankruptcy. Mr. Mitchell? Emma's voice came through the intercom. Jasmine Thompson is here to see you. Send her in, Ryan replied, closing his laptop. Jasmine entered wearing a professional pantsuit instead of her delivery uniform, looking every inch the tech executive she had always been capable of becoming. But Ryan could see uncertainty in her expression. How are you holding up? She asked, sitting down across from his desk. Better than I expected, Ryan replied honestly. The investor funding came through, we've hired additional security staff, and we're actually getting new business from companies who want the kind of cybersecurity expertise that caught this conspiracy. That's wonderful. Jasmine, Ryan said, leaning forward, I want to talk to you about the CTO position. Ryan dash. Hear me out, he interrupted gently. Tyler's resignation left us without technical leadership, and over the past 3 weeks, I've realized that what happened with DataCorp could happen again. We need someone with real cybersecurity expertise, someone who understands that technology companies have to be ethical companies. Jasmine was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the city below. What would the job actually involve? Technical oversight of all our development projects, cybersecurity architecture, and building a team of engineers who share our values, Ryan explained. Plus a budget to implement any security measures you think are necessary. And the corporate culture issues? The problems that made employees like Steve feel undervalued and overlooked. Ryan smiled. That's actually one of the main reasons I want you for this job. You understand what it feels like to be marginalized and dismissed. I want you to help me make sure that never happens to anyone at Technova. What about my reputation in the industry? Some people still think I was wrong to report the problems at Dataflow. The people who think you were wrong to report criminal activity are not the people we want to work with, Ryan said firmly. Besides, after the past 3 weeks, I think your reputation for integrity is exactly what the industry needs. Jasmine looked at him with a mixture of hope and caution. Can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Is this job offer because you feel guilty about what happened to me, or because you actually think I'm qualified? Ryan stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the busy street below. Jasmine, in one day you diagnosed a complex sabotage operation that my entire IT team missed. You fixed our system faster than Tyler could have. You optimized our code beyond what our original developers achieved. You gathered evidence that helped the FBI bust a multi-company conspiracy. He turned back to face her. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is whether we're good enough to deserve you. Jasmine smiled, the first genuinely happy expression Ryan had seen from her. When would I start? Whenever you're ready. We can structure it as a consulting arrangement initially if you want to test the waters. Actually, Jasmine said, standing up from her chair. I've been thinking about this for 3 weeks. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. Full time, full commitment, full authority to implement the security measures this company needs. And I want to create a whistleblower protection program for tech employees throughout the industry. Something that helps people report unethical practices without destroying their careers. Ryan felt a surge of excitement. That's brilliant. We could partner with other companies, create industry standards for ethical reporting. Exactly. Use Technova as a model for how tech companies should handle internal problems. They spent the next hour discussing technical requirements, team-building strategies, and the kind of corporate culture they wanted to create. As they talked, Ryan realized that hiring Jasmine wasn't just about filling Tyler's position. It was about transforming Technova into the kind of company he had always wanted to build. There's one more thing, Ryan said as their meeting was winding down. What's that? I want you to know that this job offer isn't conditional on anything other than your professional abilities. But I also want you to know that working together these past few weeks has been the most rewarding professional experience I've had in years. Jasmine looked at him with an expression that was hard to read. Ryan, are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that I hope our professional relationship might lead to a personal one, Ryan replied carefully. But only if that's something you'd be interested in exploring. And if I'm not interested? Then you're still the best CTO candidate I've ever met, and I still want you to run our technology division. Jasmine was quiet for a moment, and Ryan felt his heart rate increase as he waited for her response. I think, she said finally, that might be something worth exploring. But slowly, and with clear boundaries between personal and professional. Absolutely, Ryan agreed, trying not to smile too broadly. Good, Jasmine said, extending her hand. Then I guess I should say, Mr. Mitchell, I accept your job offer. Ryan shook her hand, feeling like everything that had gone wrong over the past month was finally starting to go right. Welcome to Technova Industries, Miss Thompson. I think this is going to be a very interesting partnership. 6 months after the DataCorp scandal broke, Technova Industries looked nothing like the company Ryan had almost lost. The office buzzed with the energy of a team that had survived crisis and emerged stronger. New employees worked alongside veterans who had weathered the storm, all united by a shared commitment to ethical technology and transparent business practices. Ryan stood in the main conference room, watching Jasmine present Technova's new industry-leading cybersecurity protocols to a room full of executives from competing companies. The ethical tech initiative she had proposed was becoming a reality, with 12 major companies signing on to implement standardized whistleblower protections and security auditing procedures. The goal isn't just to protect individual companies, Jasmine was explaining to the assembled executives. It's to protect the entire industry from the kind of systematic corruption that made the DataCorp conspiracy possible. Ryan felt a surge of pride watching her command the room. Over the past 6 months, Jasmine had transformed Technova's security infrastructure, built a world-class cybersecurity team, and become a respected voice in the industry. More importantly, she had helped him understand that running a successful company meant more than just hitting revenue targets. Questions? Jasmine asked as she concluded her presentation. Sarah Rodriguez from Phoenix Ventures raised her hand. Ms. Thompson, what's your response to critics who say these measures will slow down innovation and make the industry less competitive? I'd say those critics are wrong, Jasmine replied confidently. Ethical companies innovate faster because they don't waste time covering up mistakes or stealing from competitors. Technova's development speed has actually increased since we implemented these measures. It was true. The company's revenue had grown by 40% since Jasmine joined as CTO, driven partly by new business from clients who wanted proven cybersecurity expertise, but mostly by the improved efficiency that came from having clear ethical guidelines and strong team cohesion. As the meeting wrapped up and executives began filing out, Ryan noticed Jasmine checking her phone with a curious expression. Everything okay? He asked. Steve's parole hearing was today, she said. His lawyer just texted me. He's being released next month with time served. How do you feel about that? Jasmine considered the question. I think he learned something from all this. His cooperation helped prosecutors identify corruption at 6 other companies. He might actually do some good when he gets out. Any word on Tyler? He's doing well actually. His house arrest ends next week, and he's been working on a startup focused on ethical AI development. He called last week to apologize again and to ask if I thought he had a chance at rebuilding his reputation. What did you tell him? I told him that reputation isn't something you rebuild, it's something you earn every day through your choices. Ryan smiled. That sounds like something you learned the hard way. Everything worth knowing I learned the hard way, Jasmine replied. But I'm okay with that now. They walked together toward Ryan's office, where champagne was waiting to celebrate the successful launch of the Ethical Tech Initiative. But as they passed the main work area, Jasmine stopped suddenly. Ryan, look at this, she said, pointing to a workstation where one of their junior developers was debugging code. What am I looking at? See that algorithm structure? It's brilliant, more efficient than anything in our current codebase. Lisa figured out a way to optimize our AI processing that I hadn't even considered. Ryan watched Jasmine's excitement as she studied the code. Even after 6 months, she still got genuinely excited about elegant programming solutions. It was one of the things he found most attractive about her passion for the work itself, not just the success it might bring. We should promote her, Jasmine continued. Give her a team to work with, let her develop this approach further. Done, Ryan said immediately. Write up the proposal and I'll approve it. Just like that. Jasmine, in 6 months, you've never been wrong about technical talent. If you think Lisa deserves a promotion, she gets a promotion. They continued to Ryan's office, where the champagne and the view of the city skyline were waiting. As Ryan poured 2 glasses, he reflected on how much had changed since that chaotic morning when Jasmine had walked into his lobby carrying Thai food and ended up saving his company. Penny for your thoughts, Jasmine said, accepting her glass. I was thinking about that first day, Ryan replied. When you told me you might be able to help with our system crash. Did you know what you were getting yourself into? Not at all, Jasmine laughed. I thought I was going to spend 10 minutes looking at error logs and then deliver my food order. What changed your mind? What made you decide to stay and help? Jasmine was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city below. I saw something in your eyes that I recognized. The look of someone who had built something meaningful and was watching it fall apart through no fault of their own. And you decided you couldn't walk away from that. I decided I didn't want to be someone who could walk away from that, Jasmine corrected. I had spent a year delivering food and feeling sorry for myself. Helping you meant remembering who I really was. Ryan moved closer to the window where she was standing. Over the past 6 months, their professional relationship had slowly evolved into something deeper. They had been careful, setting boundaries and making sure their personal feelings didn't interfere with their work responsibilities. But somewhere along the way, those boundaries had become less important than the connection they shared. Jasmine, Ryan said, setting down his champagne glass, I have something I want to ask you. If it's about the quarterly security review, I already have it scheduled for next week. It's not about work, Ryan said, smiling at her automatic assumption that everything was business-related. It's about us. Jasmine turned to face him, her expression shifting from professional to personal. What about us? We've been doing this careful dance for 6 months now, keeping our personal and professional lives separate. And it's worked well, we've built an amazing company together. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what might have happened if I'd been brave enough to tell you how I really feel. Jasmine set down her own glass, her eyes searching his face. And how do you really feel? I feel like I want to build a life with you, not just a company, Ryan said honestly. I feel like the best part of every day is working alongside you, solving problems together, creating something meaningful. Ryan. I know it's complicated, he continued. I know mixing business and personal relationships is risky. But I also know that the most important things in life usually are risky. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, and Ryan felt his heart pounding as he waited for her response. You know what I realized about 6 weeks ago? She said finally. What? I realized that I had stopped thinking about Technova as your company. I started thinking about it as our company. Our team, our vision, our future. And how do you feel about that? Terrified, Jasmine admitted with a smile. But also excited. I spent so long being afraid to trust people, afraid to invest in anything that could be taken away from me. And now I think maybe the scariest thing would be not investing in something because I was afraid of losing it. Ryan reached for her hands, feeling the same mixture of excitement and terror that had driven him to start Technova in the first place. So what do you think? Want to take another risk together? I think, Jasmine said, stepping closer to him, that taking risks with you has worked out pretty well so far. As Ryan leaned down to kiss her, he caught a glimpse of the city spread out below them through the office windows. Millions of people going about their lives, building companies, falling in love, taking chances on uncertain futures. 6 months ago, he had been just another startup CEO trying to survive long enough to make his mark on the world. Now, as Jasmine kissed him back with warmth and promise, Ryan realized he had found something better than success. He had found a partner who shared his values, challenged his assumptions, and made him want to build something that would last. When they finally broke apart, Jasmine smiled at him with the same confident expression she wore when solving complex technical problems. "So," she said, "what's our next project?" Ryan laughed, pulling her closer. "I think our next project is figuring out how to build a life together that's as amazing as the company we've created." "That's a pretty ambitious goal," Jasmine replied. "Good thing we're both pretty good at solving complicated problems." Outside the windows, the sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. And inside Technova Industries, two people who had found each other in the midst of crisis were getting ready to build something even better than either of them could have imagined alone. The code was complete, but the program was just beginning. Thank you for taking this journey with Ryan and Jasmine. Their story shows us that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can change everything. A simple food delivery that becomes a life-changing partnership, a moment of crisis that reveals hidden strengths, and the power of choosing integrity over safety. I'd love to hear your thoughts on their story. Here are some questions I'm curious about. What moment in the story resonated most with you? Was it Jasmine's courage in helping despite her past trauma, Ryan's decision to trust a stranger, or their slow build toward partnership? Do you think Jasmine made the right choice in leaving her delivery job to return to tech? What would you have done in her situation? How did you feel about Tyler's betrayal? Do you think people deserve second chances after making serious mistakes? What did you think about the way Ryan and Jasmine handled mixing their professional and personal relationships? If you were building a tech company, what values would be most important to you? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing how these stories connect with your own experiences.